In this video tutorial, I'll walk you through creating a workbook using Azure Monitor data. We'll show the relationship between application performance and infrastructure metrics in one integrated view. Workbooks allow you to combine data from various Azure data sources and data types, and they enable you to visualize the data in a single interactive report. One of the ways you can access workbooks is to navigate to Azure Monitor and click on Workbooks to get to the Workbooks gallery. This is a collection of predefined workbook templates that you can take advantage of as is or edit and customize to meet your requirements. Let's look at a couple of examples of templates before we create a new workbook ourselves. Here's a workbook for virtual machine performance. This shows common performance metrics such as CPU, memory, and disk usage across several VMs and multiple subscriptions for a big picture at scale type of view. It includes tables with trending charts for easy sorting, and if I switch tabs here, there are line charts below for easy visual comparison. Now here's the application failure analysis workbook, which lists application requests, failures, success rates, and the number of affected users for up to 3 different application resources all at the same time. In general, workbooks allow you to query data from multiple sources in Azure, create custom visualizations for reporting and analysis, and combine multiple UX elements such as text, visualizations, parameters, links, and more into a single interactive experience. For this demonstration, I'll be starting with an empty workbook, so you'll see how to add content to the workbook from scratch. One of the use cases for workbooks is to provide a comprehensive view that tells the story about the performance and availability of multiple related resources. Additionally, you can also provide different monitoring perspectives on the same resource set, and this is exactly what I'll be doing here. I'll start by adding some text that describes what the workbook does. This is done using Markdown, so you can easily add some basic formatting for things like headings and links. In this example, we'll build a workbook that shows the availability and performance at the application layer, but then goes on to compare those to infrastructure metrics from the VM on which the app is running. Next, I'll add a line chart showing application availability using metrics. First by selecting the resource type and my application insights resource, but I'll leave the default simple line chart visualization. Once those choices have been made, I can move on to selecting the metric and the aggregation type. Remember to click on Run Metrics to actually create the chart and preview the results. It's also good practice here to at least add a title to each of your charts, tables, and graphs. Now I'll click on Done Editing, and there we have it, my first visualization in the workbook. For a second visualization, I want to display the response time of each application request by its name. That is, the duration of each request by operation name. I'll do this using Azure Monitor Logs, so I'll click on Add Query to get started. If you're already familiar with the query language KQL, you can go ahead and get started editing right here in the workbook, or jump over to the Azure Monitor Logs UI to test out more complicated queries. I'll start with a very simple query to pull back the request table. I'll then summarize these requests by average duration, and then sort them in descending order in the table. And now, with a quick update to change how my column is rendered, and again, I'll point out we should follow good naming convention and add a descriptive title here. So here's our final table showing application response times with another interesting visualization technique to highlight the differences in duration. Maybe I'm also interested in seeing the overall response time in a time series chart similar to the availability line chart that we created above. So I'll quickly put that together with another metric chart using the same process, selecting the resource type, selecting the resource, metric, and aggregation. Next, I'll move on to previewing the chart to ensure that we see the data that we want, and I'll also take a moment to update the title to App Server Response Time. Lastly, I'd like to compare the application performance views that we created to the most basic infrastructure metrics, percentage CPU, and memory usage. Again, I'll use metrics, starting with selecting the resource type, subscription, and the resource of interest. In this case, I'll select the VM, the retail VM, and that's where my app is running. And with these selections made, I can move on to selecting the relevant metrics, and I'll use average as my aggregation type. The first metric that I use will be percentage CPU from the standard metrics namespace, and the second one will be memory committed bytes percentage from the custom metrics namespace. And just like we've been doing with all our graphs, I'll add a title here as well. I'll introduce one new setting here. By changing the visualization from line chart to tiles, this will aggregate all of the values collected during the time period down to a single one per metric. So now we have a report that highlights application availability and performance in comparison to server-side CPU and memory. Of course, this demonstration just scratched the surface of what can be done with workbooks. You can expand on what you've seen here to include parameters that make your workbooks more interactive. You can add more complex queries, or you can use more sophisticated visualizations. For me, all I need to do at this point is save the workbook before returning to the workbooks gallery. Although I've demonstrated creating a workbook from scratch and shown some of the workbook templates that are available earlier, I should also point out that several Azure Monitor insights are also based on workbooks and can be customized just as easily as you've seen today. Let's look at Azure Monitor for Storage as an example. This gives an at-scale view of the performance and capacity of all storage accounts across multiple subscriptions. This would be a great starting point for a custom storage workbook. Thanks for watching this short tutorial. Hopefully this helps you get started on your journey with workbooks in Azure.